I really enjoyed this movie. It was really sweet. I wasn't sure what to expect with Manson in the movie's title. You know, there's a lot of things come to mind when it comes to Manson, but I'm actually get this question up. I had to ask. This was inspired by a friend of yours being a big Manson follower, is that correct?
Yeah, partially. I mean, I had my own kind of interest in the Manson family when I was a kid. I kind of found the Helter Skelter book and then had it taken from me and, you know, became obsessed with kind of getting it back and learning more. But I did, I went to high school with somebody whose kind of obsession far surpassed my own and who kind of had like pictures of Charlie in his locker. You know, would shout his names in the hallways. I mean, like very provocative.
Charlie!
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I mean.
Funny.
Yeah, no, I recently just got back in touch with him.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see it yet or not?
He hasn't seen it yet. But,
Oh, yeah.
But he was really excited that it existed.
Cool. Awesome. You made one weird friend from high school. Very, very proud.
And now he's going to be asking you for royalties, I'm sure. But yeah, but it's interesting because like Manson is Charles Manson, I should say. There's a couple Mansons out there, but Charles Manson. I mean, it is kind of eerily fascinating how he's been still in the public consciousness after so many years, and you managed to visit a number of locations where he and his family were at, like the Tate House, I believe, and the Bianco House. Was it hard getting into those locations?
Well, we kind of used real locations when we could, so it's kind of a mixture.
Oh, okay.
But we wanted it, you know, to be a real-life travelogue. And, you know, yeah, it is interesting that there are these movies. It does seem like there are movies and TV shows kind of coming out right now about it, which we didn't really anticipate. I don't know why it's kind of in the air, but it does seem to be. And ours is just a little different because, I mean, most Manson movies are kind of period pieces, whereas ours is a kind of modern-day story about this gentleman.
I thought it took place in the future. I was pretending like my character was a robot the whole time. I hope that didn't ruin it. And did you remember that scene where the water drops on me and I was like, you remember that? You cut around it. But there was one flash, one moment where I was like,
I remember that moment, yeah. But yeah, it was, and I mean, your character is interesting. He's like really sweet, and he has this deep fascination with Manson, which becomes more understandable as the movie goes on. But how did you approach this character exactly?
Just did a lot of research and started reading Manson books right away when he told me he wanted me to do it, and yeah, it was really fascinating and such a nice part of the process. And talking to you about it, and people that you've known and your own kind of interest in the case and Manson. But the interviews are amazing. There's just so much stuff. So yeah, it wasn't hard. Like, oh, I'm a guy who watched all this stuff and read these books, and I did that. So I guess I'm that guy. And you're just kind of playing up the parts of me that was really into it without the tempered aspects of like, oh yeah, it's really sad, or thinking about the darker sides of it. Because he's a little childlike, or and insensitive with how interested he is in Charlie.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But
you and Jay also, I mean, as part of the preparation, you guys had your whole kind of backstory work.
Yeah, and so there was two part, the Manson stuff, but then also just the brothers and what it feels like to be the brother or the member of the family who's like the black sheep, or you don't feel like you're as part of it, and just how sad that is. And there's like stories you hear of people who've been adopted, or friends, or past girlfriends who have like told me about just growing up and just not having a parent like reject them, sort of. And it's just such a serious thing. And there's a kind of a parallel with Manson. His mother kind of really neglected him, and he went to a like a boarding
and
school.
he never knew his
father. So I mean, it's just like a real tragedy when that happens to anyone.
Yeah.
So there was that going on because I mean he wasn't totally rejected, but he was, you know, once Jay's character was born, my character just felt like kind of pushed aside. And
right.
There's definitely dynamics in that in my family, even when joking around and being like, "Mom, which one's your favorite? Like, come on, really, who's your favorite?" You know, and you know, you're joking, and I come from a great family.
You're not her favorite.
No, I'm not. No, you know, we joke about it, but you know, we have a good family. But you know, you still get that sense. It's like, you know, especially when someone has more trouble just growing up and they're going through a harder time, they're harder to love and harder to raise. And Conrad is definitely the harder to love one.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that. Yeah, and I mean, we learned a few things about Charles Manson in this movie that I don't think are very clear outside of, you know, his horrific crimes. But what surprised you most about the research you did on Charles Manson while making this movie?
I mean, it's kind of a better question for you because I kind of knew my stuff kind of going in. Yeah. I didn't research that much around the time of writing it. But you do.
Yeah, I tried to add in some little tidbits here and there, and then you're like, okay, we have enough. Okay, calm down, stop. And so I was like, at a certain point, I'm like, I should stop reading these books. It's not helping. You know, I'm like, we got to put in something about this. Well, I think the fact that he wasn't present during the murders, you know, like, you know, you could say he didn't kill anyone. I know, you know, he's in jail because they said he ordered these murders. You know, so that's interesting, that the fact that he wasn't even there, except for one. He was there, he tied people up, which is horrible. But, I mean, there's all this, like, the details of the case, but really finding out about the man and watching him in these interviews is really interesting because a lot of it, he's pretty scary, and you can see a very damaged and probably, you know, chemically imbalanced person, or there's sides of that to him. But there's also, to me, he's sort of like a demented shaman. You know, he's saying these philosophical things or stuff about loving people and the environment, and you know, it's interesting. I think because he's so dark, and then he's saying such these like positive messages, and then it makes it seem even more profound. But he is pretty dynamic, and there's some really interesting, you know, valuable aspects to his personality, just like anybody.
Right.
You know, his highs and lows are just way more than the average person.
Yeah.
You know, the good and the bad sides.
Yeah. And when you started writing this screenplay, did you know how it was going to end when you started it? I mean, the movie takes an interesting twist towards the end, which I don't want to reveal here, but...
It was in the writing and in the making that we sort of figured it out, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you had a lot of different versions while you were writing. Like, it could go this way, it could go that way.
Yeah,
so I think
it was kind of choose your own.
Yeah,
adventure.
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah, but then once it kind of changed and solidified to where it was closer to like one of the versions, I think, that you had. So it was a surprise, but then it wasn't. Yeah.
And I mean, the look. I mean, in the latter half of the movie, you're in like the desert. Where exactly did you film that part of the movie?
Well, they were different. We were in Wonder Valley some of the time. We were in different deserts at different times.
Oh, I see.
We were trying to escape the law.
Ah.
Yeah, we were not permitted very often. So.
No, I was just kidding. Okay, but yeah, we weren't. Fine, go ahead, reveal it.
Okay, I'll write that down.
Write that down.
No
Tell the
problem.
authorities.
But yeah, but the look of the movie in the second half is beautiful. I mean, and it's interesting to see how, you know, while Manson is such a reviled figure, he somehow manages to bring people together even in jail. In the last, it was that part. Did you find that out during your research?
Did I?
That people are still sort of trying to promote the good sides of Manson, or like.
I mean, I sort of vaguely knew that there were people congregated where he is, but I didn't delve too far into it. I mean, as I said, I kind of, my main interest was when I was a kid, and I sort of used that as I was writing. Didn't go, I didn't fully submerge back into it in the same way that Linas did, to get into his character.
Okay. And was there a lot of improvisation involved during the filming?
Yeah, Jay and Linas improv quite a bit. We would generally, especially with scenes when they're together, I felt like you guys worked great. Putting things into your own words. We kind of would hit the beats of the script, and then kind of once we knew we had it in the can, we would, we'd play with it a bit and explore. And that was for Jay and Linas. I mean, for certain actors, like Tobin was much more of a script person. So, in scenes with Tobin, we stuck more to the script. So it sort of depended kind of what worked for people.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I was ready for whatever, and then I think because, I'm a filmmaker, but I went to acting school, but I think because Jay and I are both like kind of writer-directors, and you're a writer-director, it's like we're all kind of like using that side of us, and maybe insecurity because we haven't acted quite as much, I have maybe a little bit more than Jay, but not as much recently, or before we did that a couple of years ago. So I think it was like a way for us to ensure that the performance, we're giving the best performance-wise. It helped us. And now I feel like my process is to like write things in my own words so many times that they actually become just like what the script was originally. It's just like a good way to go.
That's a good way to go about it. I mean, it gets so in your head that you stop thinking about it, right? As an actor, that's kind of where you lose yourself, which is great. And and having Tobin Bell in this movie is interesting. We're so used to seeing him as Jigsaw in the Saw movies, or as the Robert De Niro's parole officer in Goodfellas, But yeah, it's interesting to see him here, and it's kind of like it's almost a different role for him in that I think he gets to have a little more fun. I mean, was it hard to get him for this movie?
We had a producer, Josh Logan, who had worked with him in the past, so we had an in to kind of go to Tobin. And Josh Logan sort of vouched for us and said that although we were, a smaller movie, we were okay people who were going to get the job done at the end of the day. And Tobin agreed to kind of, slum it with us in the desert. And he just, he worked out his backstory. He kind of brought his character. I knew that his character had been in prison with Manson. I mean, that's kind of the extent of what I had worked out for the backstory of the character, and he filled in all the blanks. When he first read the script, he had notes about his character, but he had notes about the brothers, and
he was just so excited to work on something that was more character-based and relationship and rich with, human interactions and all that. So he was great. He was really involved in
and put us on our best behavior.
And scared me. When there was a scene that we cut where he was threatening my character in a bathroom, and he was coming up to me. So, Linas, I think maybe we do this. I just grabbed it like that. He really auditioned it for me, but for real.
He's always had that sort of scary look to him. I mean, back in the 90s, he was the bad guy in a lot of movies, like In the Line of Fire or Malice, or movies like that. So it's interesting to see, how his career has evolved from there. Yeah. And how long did you have to make this movie, and what was the shooting schedule?
Our shooting schedule, because of people's schedules, we actually started by doing kind of long weekends. We kind of worked our way into a normal shoot. And yeah, I mean, so we spaced it out that way and became a regular shoot. Because we were, kind of self-financed, or, because we were an indie, I mean, we didn't have a drop-dead date to be done, or to, that kind of thing. So we were able to work at our own pace. I mean, I have like a regular job, and I had to kind of work.
That was
on
the
this
biggest
in my-
deadline. You had to go back to work.
I had to get back to work. I mean, even working on it, I was getting pulled in different directions. So luckily, we didn't have, these kind of drop dead deadlines, and we could work at our pace and work the material and, get it where we felt we needed it to be.
So, and working at your own pace, did that make it easier for you to make this film, or more challenging?
I mean, we would have been done more quickly if if I had had more time.
Yeah.
At different junctures to dedicate to it, but that's just the nature of doing this kind of movie.
Yeah. Yeah, most indie movies these days, they have like a schedule of like 10 to 15 days or whatever. So it's like, it sounds like you had a little bit more time than most of the
And Jay was smart too, because he knew that it was a very ambitious movie for the size, and
Yeah, this wasn't written with a low budget in mind, really.
And your first, feature that you're doing. So he suggested doing like not a full tight schedule.
Right.
Let's have a little breathing room so we can reassess.
And he was doing things.
Yeah,
during
he
that
probably
time
needed
as
that
well.
time
He
too.
was writing, I think, during our breaks at first.
So it's a good way to do it. Like kind of do long weekends. So
I mean, certain people are, like camera people. It was a little hard with crew at times because people really, camera people really like to schedule giant blocks of time.
Right.
And work it out.
Yeah. Most of the time they want a schedule that they can follow. Yeah. So yeah, I imagine it was quite different for them. And you have shots of I mean, I love the opening and the closing shots that you have with Charles Manson, and the first one we see Charles Manson, he's just incredibly unpredictable. Kind of reminds you why he's in jail. And then the last one, it seems to be there's a more humane side to him than people ever bother to realize or want to admit to. Where did you get that footage, and was it hard putting it in the movie?
We had gone through lots of Manson interviews, and we kind of picked the pieces we want, got in touch with the people we needed to get in touch with to use it. We also use Manson's real music in the movie, so we had to kind of track that down. One of our music supervisors did that. So yeah, there was a little legwork involved in getting stuff, but luckily we were able to do it. I mean, it's like if you're playing Manson's music, you want it to be Manson's music.
Right.
So yeah, we were lucky enough to get it.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, seriously, I really like the movie. It's a really sweet movie. I hope it gets an audience, a big audience. So congratulations. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for your time.
You bet.